pasado mes de marzo tuvimos la visita de Emi Fukahori, quien es campeona mundial de infusiones en el 2018 y campeona barista de Suiza en el 2020. Y Mathieu Theis, campeón barista de Suiza en el 2016, 2018 y 2019. Ambos propietarios de Mame Specialty Coffee, basado en Suiza. Aprovechando la oportunidad, un grupo de baristas, entusiastas y seguidores de su contenido en redes sociales se hicieron presentes en un evento privado para conocerlos y poder intercambiar criterios.
So in Europe, what's happening is there is a shift from washed coffees to natural and funky coffees. So we get more and more customers that are not anymore fanatics or coffee lovers, but they're more normal people. People that used to go to Starbucks or people that used to go to normal cafes. And for those customers, when you bring washed, it's quite difficult. They don't understand it. When you bring naturals or anaerobics or like very funkies, they jump on it more easily. So we always keep that in mind when we buy coffee, because even though maybe sometimes we really like some very clean washed, we know we're not going to be able to sell it as much as natural. So like for example, for this trip in Costa Rica, we have a budget and we said this is how much we want to spend, and this is more or less how much we want to have on washed, how much we want to have on naturals, how much we want to have on funkies, right? And then depending on the price that producers ask for, we look at the quantity. We rarely negotiate the price because we believe that, we don't know what the price should be. Producers tell us what is good for them. And depending on the price, we adjust the quantity we can buy, more or less, right? So if it's very expensive, then we buy a little. If it's not too expensive, then we buy more. But that's the strategy we're pursuing. So it's a bit of a mix of what we like and what we think our customers are going to like.
I think because for us, we started and we still are coffee lovers. We don't want to forget that part, that in the end it's about customers. They have to have a great experience with the coffee. And sometimes the very starting point, they don't even know what the origin means. And we baristas try to make it meaningful, make them curious to know what they like. Turns out, certain varietals, processing methods, etc. But first part is more like it's not eye-catchy, but it's more tongue-catchy. And draw attention and start a conversation. So yes, I agree with Mathieu. Not always, but something more impressive tends to be more our focus at the moment.
Also because so if you look at the US market, it's mainly driven by filters. So coffee from Costa Rica are actually really good for this because the acidity is not so bothering. But markets like Southern Europe, so Spain, France, Switzerland, Italy, we are driven by espressos. That's what we drink. So Costa Rican coffees on espresso, that's hard because that's very, very acidic. And more than that, what we drink are milk. 80% of what we sell in coffee shops are milk-based. So that's also why natural is so nice, because it's much easier to get the taste of the coffees through the milk. If you have a washed, it's just vanished with the milk, right? So we start to see. After that, us concretely at Mame, it's very peculiar what we do because we sell also to new customers. So we have a lot of customers in Middle East, in Asia a lot. We sell a lot to China. And again, those are very newcomers in coffees. This is not like they don't have a coffee cultures. So they also tend to jump on more crazy flavors. Like for example, where the El Trapiche guys, yeah, here. Maurice is there, exactly. So if you look at their coffees, I think their coffees 5 years ago would have been considered as defect or undrinkable or very strange. Today you sell this, Middle East people, they go insane because for them, they're going to put that in milk. It's like, wow, it's the most amazing coffee ever. So that's what we say. You have to take it with a grain of salt because it's very peculiar to Europe, Southern Europe, and very peculiar to the customers that we sell.
So it goes back to the point: who are your customers? Yeah. What do you want to transmit?
I think if you would have like a Swedish or a Danish guy, he would tell something completely different because they're more filter driven, right? So they would more go for washed and clean coffees. But for us, yeah, we completely. If you look at, I think in what we buy, maybe we buy like 50 tons per year of coffees. It's maybe 15% of washed. All the rest are natural and processed coffees.
For me, when I look for coffees for this monthly Mame, which is a monthly subscription to basically try to create world champions experience at home. Each time we present a coffee, we have cupped it, and there was a reason why we wanted to buy. Say it's special flavors, texture, experience, whatever. And for me, these are the most important experience that I want to transmit to that cup. So my starting point is, so how did it taste in the cupping, and how can I put this in the cup that the people are drinking? So taking, let's say, very gentle, citric, clean coffee, like let's say, I don't know, Katukai, washed or white honey of Costa Rica. I would like those notes very much respected in a cup. So I would start to think, what can I do to do so, with which device, which characteristic can I emphasize? As an example, if I take V60, it's very accessible to everybody. A lot of people have it, but it's also quite difficult to get technical, but it's very clean coffee. If you want to emphasize more body, maybe you can use AirPress or whatever goes on the device. And then the water, the grind size, recipes, so all of this to meet what I had in cupping. So that's my approach.
Yeah, for us, the starting point is cupping is the best.
Yeah.
Any other method is a compromise of the cupping.
Yeah.
That's the way we see it. We believe that most of the best experience we had in coffee are cuppings.
Especially
that's where we really
coffee,
enjoy the coffees.
It's,
So for us, it's always like, how can we get close to that experience, knowing that we won't be able to do it? It's usually very impossible. There are some miracles. Sometimes it does work, but most of the time, a cupping is so much better, so much better. But you know, cupping is maybe half an hour, and brewing is like 2 minutes. So how do you make it in 2 minutes that it's close to half an hour?
That's the job of mine.
Yes,
That's my job.
So that's where we compromise as much as
Amazing.
possible. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah, if we could, we would say just cup the coffee.
Yeah,
That would actually be the best. To
ultimately
be
the
honest.
best.
If I'm very honest, if I look at what we buy, we actually don't need Costa Rica, because for us as European, Costa Rica competes directly with Ethiopia. Because when you guys arrive in Europe, it's usually May, June, and a month later in July, Ethiopian arrives. And if I have to compare Ethiopian to Costa Rican, you always lose, because Ethiopian are cheaper, they're better quality, they're more variety.
And also often bigger.
Yeah, also bigger,
Quantity.
bigger lot. So if it's not for the love of Costa Rica, for sure we will never take Costa Rica. What's I think to me it starts to be interesting in Costa Rica is that you start having very unique coffees, and this is where it starts to be interesting, because those profiles like El Trapiche, for example, those are not profiles that you get that easily in other countries. So we will get more like Ethiopia will be the base where we buy, like we need this for like 6-9 months, big volumes, and when we need something a bit special, we will go to Costa Rica. That's how we do it. But again, that's a European point of view. I'm sure Americans will say very opposite to that. I'm sure the big chunk is from Costa Rica. So it's for us. The problem is because it arrives with Ethiopian coffees.
Logistics speaks a lot, so to say. It's obviously unforgettable part. It's very important. Whenever we purchase coffee, when are they coming, how they are coming, in which condition, etc. This has a big impact to manage green coffees.
Like if you look at this year, for example, it's almost the worst for Costa Rica for us, because you guys are very late, So none of the coffees, they're not like totally dried yet or processed, which means it's going to arrive even later for us. And Ethiopia is on time. So now it's probably going to collide. So if the roster calculated very well his stock, there is no way he buys Costa Rica because it doesn't need, he still have some Ethiopian from last year. You're going to get the next Ethiopian. So that's why I think the message is more, at least for us, is the more you can develop a unique profile that other origins cannot have, then the better, because then you're positioning yourself not in competition to Ethiopia. But if you do a natural, which is like Ethiopian, I will always take Ethiopian for sure.
Surprisingly, our customers, I think 60% don't know what specialty coffee is. We try actually not to teach people, but try to drag them without letting them know. So we are like, okay, so what would you like to drink? Coffee. What do you like in your coffee? Do you like acidity? Do you like to try something new? So I try to ask questions like this. Also, like, we talk flavors. So would you like something chocolatey? Do you like something nutty? Do you want something fruity? You know. And this is quite easy. It's like, which kind of ice cream do you want? Do you want vanilla today? Do you want, I don't know, mango today? Whatever. And they are all specialities. There is no differences. It's just different coffees. And then we try to plant the seeds. And people are not stupid. They start to think, oh, there's a difference. I don't know why, but this coffee is more tasty. I don't know why. And one day, some of those make efforts and say, hey, what do you do different from other cafes? What is so tasty that I cannot get? I'm ordering the same drink. And that's where we say, welcome to specialty. That's all information we have. If we want to know, we have everything. But we don't impose them. We want to make them realize, and it's slowly but surely happening.
Yeah, I think the difficulty, especially for you guys, is that like if you would come to Mame, you'll be disappointed by the information that we give. Because we don't talk about origin, because we believe nobody cares. They don't know. If you go to a coffee and you say, do you have a Colombian or Ethiopian? How many people really know what does that mean concretely? Like, what do you expect in the cup? So we have removed everything from origin. There is no origin in our coffees. Like, it's, you don't know which coffee we're serving. We've removed the name because if I say finca, whatever, it also doesn't speak to anybody. So the trick to us was we want to attract people and not saying, oh, we're special, it's acidic coffees, no. Because at the end of the day, also, you know, it's not like in Europe, everybody jumped on acidic coffees. It's actually not true. I think in every country's majority of people, they like dark roast, burnt coffees, bitter.
So that's what they know.
That's what they know. This is like, we've been to so many countries now, it's true everywhere. I've never seen a country where people say, oh no, yeah, just give me your most acidic stuff. Like, you know. So in that sense, that's why what Emi explained is that when you come to Mame, if you come and you say, can you give me a coffee? Then I understand you're not so much into talking or like, you don't want maybe to discover something. We're going to give you the basic Brazilian, no acidity, chocolatey. You know, because at the end of the day, we have to pay the bills and we don't want to lose that customer. Now, if the guy comes back every day and we start to know his name and you say, dude, you've been trying this Brazilian every day. You know we have other coffees. Why don't you try that Ethiopian natural? And then, but we don't even say Ethiopian natural. We say, why don't you try this? So now, for example, we have a Colombian natural Catura. We call it Carlos. So they don't even know it's Colombian. They don't even know it's Catura. They don't even know it's natural. The only thing they know is it's called Carlos. That's it. So we said, why don't you try Carlos? Yeah, why not? They don't know what it is, right? So they have no ideas about it.
And they also trust us because they've been back to us a few times.
And so when they try, that's what Emi says, like they try this and it's like, wow. But because they don't know. The problem is if you say, why don't you try this coffee? If for whatever the reason they had bad experience with Costa Rica because for some reason they tried before, then you're doomed, So that's why when you say try this, and then if the guy says, well, it's really good, explain why, then you can start talking and say, well, this coffee comes from blah, blah, blah. But for us, we believe that if you want to trap the customers, it's we don't have to bombard them with information that
on day one.
On day one, they don't care.
Yeah.
Look at the wine, for example. Does a lot of people know how to choose a bottle of wine? Do you know the varieties? Do you know the regions? Nobody knows. We all do the same. You look at bottle of wine, you say, oh, that's very expensive, that's very cheap. You choose in the middle. We all do the same. It's clear. So
you look at the labels.
You look at the
this is
labels,
pretty.
that looks nice. But this is clear. Coffee is the same. None of our customers, 5% maybe, but majority of the customers, they have no idea about variety.
What about the stories? Like, are there your consumers interested in hearing?
To start with nice, chocolatey, non-acidic coffees, and bring them all the way to Kenyan, in a way, right? So we're very happy when someone went all the way from Brazilian, Guatemala, Ethiopia, Costa Rica, and then he finished to super acidic Kenyan. I'm like, wow, that guy went on a journey. And then that guy can start telling a little bit about the differences. But is that guy able to say, what was the variety for Kenyan? For sure not. Even baristas, sometimes they make mistakes. So how can you expect a customer to know what are the varieties in Kenya? It's impossible. That is interesting for us, for professional. When we cup, we ask, we are able to detect the variety in the cupping, yes. For the customers, the guy is going to buy a cappuccino with some Costa Rican coffee, next day a bottle of wine, the next day chocolate. Those people, they have no time to go very deep into the topic of coffee. You know what I mean? They have other things to do. So, yeah. But for us, why I'm saying that is because when we entered in specialty coffee, we had very bad experiences. In Europe, people were very arrogant and were very this is the coffee, you have to like it like this. They were imposing their taste. And I think now, it's been almost 15 years now in Europe that specialty has started. The audience is completely different. We don't have those fanatics anymore. We do have it, but we have way more. We have Mr. Nobody. We have the guy that work in the construction, and he comes and the guy doesn't care about it's a Costa Rica from Tarazu region. It's the guy has to work and do the, you know what I mean? So we have those guys. We have also older people. So we have old generation and old type of people. And for them, we're very happy when they say, man, the cup was excellent. What was it? I was Costa Rica. So we have some baristas that are like that are we call it stars baristas. They love to talk about it.
They like to shine.
They like to shine. So I think, you have those customers that come in coffee shops. We call them the lost soul. It's people that they have time. They can hang out in your coffee shop for hours. For those people, yes, because it's a way to entertain yourself, right? But for most people, we actually got almost negative comment that people says, dude, I have to work. Give me my cappuccino. I don't care about your story. I have work to do. I have a meeting. I come here because your coffee is good, but I don't care that the story of Don Pedro, the whatever is. Just give me my cappuccino.
I think it's more to do with the timing of transmitting the information. For me, personally, very important to kind of feel, are you interested or not? I'm not going to waste your time and my time with people who are not interested, hopefully yet. But then try to see who is interested. Like Mathieu was saying, can I have a cappuccino? Okay, maybe you don't start a conversation. Hey, you seem to have a lot of coffees. Explain to me what you have. I would like to have a cappuccino. Okay, then you have 15 minutes to do your stage. And then stage is yours. You're going to be entertaining and making his or her life day very nice. But that's very important to feel. Are they on the headphone and kind of looking at the clock? Or are they looking around and thinking, oh, what do they have? What kind of coffees? Is it new? Where is it from? That's very easy to see.
Because you really have to, at least for us, understand the customers. There are people that comes, it's a date, it's a Tinder date. Do you think you can tell them the story about Costa Rica? It's like, the guy is there to date a girl to date a guy. So it's like, they just want to have like a nice space. Or you have the people that just need the kick of caffeine. They're completely like, they're not awake and they're waiting for that cup of coffee to wake up. They're not there to listen Costa Rican
But that doesn't
stories.
mean that the coffee is bad, huh?
No. But so that's the thing.
Actually.
For us, why we buy nice coffee? Because we buy very nice coffees. Ricardo has good prices, so we buy nice coffee. But for us,
Worth it.
For us, even if people, like majority of people, are not really interested, it's a victory for us that they could drink a nice coffee. So it's a victory for us and for the specialty coffee. Like we know producers will benefit from this.
Hopefully.
That the customer know about it. If he doesn't know, it's okay because the victory is there already. We bought the coffees, producers benefited from this, so we made, what we wanted to do in that sense, which is the impact on we started specialty coffee because of the value that we pay a better price. That the customer is in it. Of course, we all dream that the customer comes and say, "Oh, you have so many coffees, tell me about it." But this is like one per day. For sure.
More.
Maybe two. Okay,
Bit
maybe
more.
two. But that is like, this is what the barista is like,
Let
I
me
have the
serve
story.
them. Let me
I will
serve
tell
them.
you everything. But this is very rare. Very, very rare. Most people, those are regulars. They're like, "Oh, you have a new coffee? Yeah, can I try?" Yeah.
So most of them are asking for espressos instead of like filter coffees.
No, so most people are milk beverage. So it's cappuccinos, lattes.
70%.
Yeah, 70%. And the rest, I would say, is good amount of filters. Yeah.
So I think pure espresso 10%, and then 20% filter.
And that 20% is like, do they ask for natural or washed or something like that, or anaerobics maybe, or not really?
They don't ask those questions.
They express their feelings. Like today I want to be exposed.
But what have you been observing that they like to drink in their filtered coffees?
Depends on the people, no?
So if you have regulars, they like to change because they've been drinking. So now, for example, now we're done with Kenyan and Ethiopian. We don't have them anymore. So we have Colombian, Costa Rican. What else do we have on the menu? Of course, Brazilian. So they really appreciate the change because they've been, on winter for us, or in December, November, they had a lot of Kenyan and Ethiopian. So they're like, "Oh, that's nice, new coffees." So for them, they're more like the change. After that, you have your regulars, so you know also what they like. There are some people that like clean coffee, so they love your washed Ethiopian. There are some people that like to be impressed, so you just put like those funky coffees. Or sometimes you even try, you say, "Dude, you've been drinking this coffee like for the last 2 months, the same coffee
Let's
every
see
day."
if he realizes it.
Yeah, it's like,
We just
try
changed
something
it.
else. Like, I'm just going to put something else for you. So, I think the main point now that I try is people that can read mindsets. Because we can teach skills and everything. It's not too complicated. But reading someone like, now do you want to talk? Now you just want your coffee as quick as possible. Now you are ready to change. Like, this is harder to teach. Like, if you don't have that naturally, it's difficult. So that's what we hire. It's more like we want to please the customer. So I very often say that, who's the winner? And very often people think the winner is the first. But I always remind people that if you look at Matt Berger, probably one of the most famous barista,
Sure.
he didn't win Barista Championship. He got second.
He won Bruce.
He won Barista. But so, for example, I always say, do you know who won when Matt Berger was second? Do you know that guy? Nobody knows. The guy's forgotten. It was Pete Licata. But nobody knows. I mean, nobody knows. Maybe some knows.
He knows, but not many know
And so,
that actually he won.
what does that mean? It means that you can actually win not winning. And so for us, it was very important that if you go to a comp today and you just take the most expensive coffee, you go to Panama, you take the most incredible geisha, for sure you're going to be forgotten because before you, it's going to be the same, and after you, it's going to be the same. So you look at brewers, except Emi, the past 6-7 guys, it's all 90 plus Panama Geisha, and after it's going to be the same. And winning like this is sad because actually it's not really winning. So when we compete, we actually prefer to take a risk, try to say something. And that's why we always try to take a bit of the underdog coffees, underdog origins, or variety. So I competed a lot with Costa Rica. Not that Costa Rica is underdog origins, but in Boston, I competed with H1 variety. There are not so many competitors that go with H1 variety, right? So I think the altitude was like 1,100 meters. It's also quite rare. Most people would tell you, oh, I go at 2,000 meters because it's the best for Arabica, blah, 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 blah. So for me, I was thinking, man, if I go there, better to have something that have an impact on the industry to say, actually, you don't need geisha from 2,000 meters. You can have H1 or even Vida Sarchi or, I don't know, like a low-level variety, but with process can be amazing. That was my story. And when Emi, so I chose the coffee for Emi when she's competed. I was like, dude, if you take a coffee from Brazil, this is not a geisha, nobody's going to believe you can win Brewers Cup. I mean, it's like Brazil for us is the lowest quality ever origins. Like, no way you can win a competition with Brazilian coffees. So taking that was a nice story to say, well, man, you can win with Brazilian coffees. It's crazy. So that's the thing. So because we train a lot of competitors, I always say, dude, if you just take Panama Geisha, what a sad story. Like, what are you going to say? That hasn't been said already. Yeah. Say something that, like, take a risk, do something that you will remember. Like the one barista that I remember all the time is John Gordon. He never won, and won in the final only. But his most amazing comp was when he reached semi-final the same year as Matt Perger. He had this crazy thing about sensory. So he took the headset and put the headset into the judge and said, actually, drinking coffee is not only with your palate, but it's also, hearing music and what you smell and what you see. So I'm going to control completely that experience with different music when you're going to drink different beverage. I was like, wow, nobody has ever said that before. I still remember that thing. He never won, but for me, he won. In that sense.
Thank you.
After that, so that's a beautiful part.
Now back to reality. How do you
reality.
choose coffee?
So that's the emotional part. I think you have to feel the connection to the coffee you choose because you're going to spend month and month and on the stage with the judges, national or world. You have to like the coffee. You have to like the coffee. But because it's a competition, there are judges, and judges are trained with the score sheets. So that comes first, I think. Each different championships have different, let's say, score sheets, and different things are required. And you really have to analyze and say what is important for this beverage, how can I get this, what's not okay in that kind of, let's say, cup profile, and then you choose coffee. So you would basically sleep with the score sheet. You try to understand what's about it. For me, it took me a very long time. I started to compete in 15. Every year, whenever you get the debriefing, judges would never tell you what to do. They cannot. They can only reflect to you've done, that's why you get this point. But then you need analysis for yourself or from somebody who has experience to understand, so what is a good espresso, or what is a good filter, or what is good, because this you cannot learn. You have to know. So you have to learn score sheet, you have to understand as much as you can, and choose the coffee that it speaks to you, that makes judge score higher.
But I would even say, to be very provocative, I would even say that is not so important.
Disagreement you.
No, but why is because, for example, how do you explain that Costa Rica never won? You guys have one of the best
Michael
coffees in the
Phillips?
world. No, but Costa Rican competitor.
Uh-huh.
Why no Costa Rican competitors ever won? You should. You have access to the best coffees. You can have the best stories ever. Why Michael Phillips won, for example, with your coffees and not you guys? And I think it has to do a lot with, so for example, something that is never taught, it has to do a lot with the roast. It's when I try coffees from, you're not the only one, but very often I see Costa Rica, Mexico, Venezuela, not Venezuela, not Guatemala, El Salvador, sorry, that's what I wanted to say. You see the coffee they take, you're like, wow, the green is exceptional. And then you cupped it with their roast and you're like, wow, that was dark. It's not super dark, obviously, but to the standard of WBC or WBRC, it's quite dark. And then you think, wow, so those guys, they've never been exposed to lighter roasts. They should have won, you know? So take the one that I know the best is the Boston, the Costa Rican. And the coffee was like incredible. She should have won, for sure. But the roast, it's not there yet. And on top, like for Boston is the best example because the water was very similar to you guys in Costa Rica. So she had no excuse. She should have won. Well, at least be final and, you know. So that's why I'm saying it's provocative because in a way it has to do a lot with how you can roast to that level, how you can have the logistics to be ready to have the different batches with the different roasts, to be ready with the things. So at the end, ideally what you want is, okay, an extremely good green, but you want to have it with a lot of time so that you can understand how to degas it perfectly, how to roast it perfectly with a lot of different water. When you have that, man, you go to final for sure. Because that's what all the finalists, we all do. At the end, we don't concentrate so much on the coffees. I think you can take, especially for barista, you can take almost any good 80, 88, 89. Aga, when she won in Amsterdam, I remember well, it hurt, but okay. She won with a coffee that I cupped, it was 88 points. It was not the most fabulous coffee ever on the planet, but perfectly roasted. She trained with it for 6 months, so she understood perfectly the coffee. It wasn't too fresh. Like many competitors, they take the freshest, but she took a well-degassed, well-chilled coffees. And then it's all about logistics in that sense. Like that's the difference, I think, between like people who win and the others is that you spend countless hours doing all the tests. Like for example, I'm always surprised when I have people that says, oh, my coffee has degassed 2-3 days, it's quite fresh, it's the best. I'm like, did you try every day?
Why 3 days?
Why 3 days? And if you try every day, you will probably realize that 3 days is too fresh. It's impossible that a coffee shine after 3 days. If it's perfectly roasted, it would shine. Her coffee shine after 2 weeks. Mine, it was 3 weeks. But that is because we tried every day. And we tried different roasts. And then me, for the Costa Rican, El Diamante, I've done 400 extraction. I knew the coffee in and out. Like you couldn't trick me at all. And so, you know, when you compete, you have those like 15 minutes preparation. And you can do shots. And it's just before you're going to present to the judge. When you have done 400 extraction, you know exactly if you have a shot, what to do to correct it. I don't need to dial 10 minutes. I know exactly this. The shot is like this. That is, I know exactly on the map where the coffee is, slightly over extracted there. So let's bring it there and it's going to be perfect. So we do all the tests possible. Like Emi has done, I don't know how many tests on her coffee, spending countless nights on this. So
Sometimes it's quite interesting when I make a recipe every month. Some people write, oh, what about this? What about that? What did you do this? Did you do that? I'm like, of course. Why are you asking me this? Of course I did. But I guess that's a reflection. It looks, I think, very easy. That's fine. But it has to look easy because it's backed up with every single step you've done. Very small things. Like you said, like how do? You just do everything.
You just do all the
everything.
Tests. There is no shortcut.
No.
At least that we know. We haven't found the recipe.
If
just
everybody knows, I think everybody's world champion. Yeah. because coffee evolves, because you guys work so hard in the origin, because you guys improve or change things from the origin. What we know today, it's not right tomorrow. I mean, you guys bring something new, and we're like, okay, we have to adjust. Maybe some coffees, like when we started, a lot of people talked about freshness. It was about a few days. My coffee was, 12 days. Nobody would believe me. So I didn't say that part. My extraction was like TDS, whatever TDS is, one. I wouldn't say that because it sounds like, oh, that's so under extracted. You cannot say, oh, that number tastes less. No, you taste. You have to taste. How do you know that? Yeah, because I've, spent 4 months basically doing that.
Yeah, that's, I think, the most important point. In coffee, a lot of people tells you this is how you have to do it. So, for example, 20% extraction on espresso, some kind of TDS you have to reach. But it's not true most of the time. It's when you have a coffee, you have to work on that coffee, what works for that specific coffee. And this is where, for example, for Lorena, a TDS of 1, which would be considered under-extracted for most coffees, it was the best.
It was
just the best.
Like 12% of extraction.
Yeah. And sometimes you have maybe you cannot really explain it, but
it's tasty.
If you score it the most, then that's the way. It's like there is no other way. It's just go with what's called the best. So yeah, I remember we were talking about with a lot of competitors, and they all had this belief that coffee had to be very fresh. And when I tasted my coffee, I'm like, no, dude, it's like 3 weeks. For me, it was tasting the best espresso. So then I started to ignore what people said about it has to be fresh. I'm like, okay, then it's going to be 3 weeks. And it works the best for me. So that's why I'm saying test is really important. It's tedious and it's tedious. Sorry, it's a lot of time, but man, you learn so much about your coffee. And actually, we actually recommend that a lot for baristas. There is no it's just such a good school to learn about coffee because you have to do those tests. So you have to work on this coffee. Maybe to make it a bit in smaller blocks, I think it depends why you buy from the producer. For example, so we buy a lot from Brazil. There, I expect stability because my customers really like that type of profile. So if he keeps changing every year, it would be difficult. But for example, from you, if every year you change, I'm quite excited because I'm buying your coffee for the excitement. So here you can go as crazy as you want. Every year you change. Every year you have something different. That would be nice. So you know what I mean? It depends a little bit. Ethiopia is a bit in between. I like to be surprised from time to time, and I like some stability at the same time. So yeah. I don't know if does that answer your question?
I think I feel challenged every time I meet producers because whenever we are on the quest of so-called great coffees, I'm hoping that it's also something that you want. I don't want to change half of your harvest just because I want it. That's not what I wish. Because I think every part of the producing, families, they have their own philosophies. And somehow I would like to understand what makes sense for them with what I want. So like Mathieu was saying, I think at Mame we are quite lucky because we would like to have a range of coffees from different places, different origins. It doesn't have to be 1-2 countries. It can be in one country, why not? But luckily not one country can supply us. So there are always playgrounds. But I'm always wondering if I express something, is it what producers want? So it's very difficult question.
No, but I think you have the point. The thing is, where the question is tricky is because you say, what do we expect? But it's not like that. It's a relationship. And so that's why it cannot be just one direction.
Yeah.
Now I realize this. I'm thinking about this because we had producers in Zurich from Guatemala, but the daughter was living in Zurich. So obviously we were very close to the producer because she could come to our shop every day. And her production was 5 tons. It's quite of a small farm. And we had the idea of buying the entire production. And so she would design like some lot which are more like chocolatey, nutty for like, basics, some more like natural fruity flavors, and some very funky geishas, crazy stuff. So that we could have like everything from her. And it would have been nice because we would have financed it, so she would have like stability in terms of finance. So we would have like pre-buy everything every year. So that would have like changed her life completely. And for us as well, it was a much, much bigger commitment on this. Finally, we didn't do it. But for example, something like that it wasn't what we wanted. It was from a conversation with them. We had like, hey, why not? Yeah, let's do something like this together. Like it was a very nice project together. But we never said, oh, let's go so deep into farming.
Definitely like something we feel very responsible for. It's kind of like a contradiction because we want something different, but I always feel a bit like, selfish. I want this year. I don't like that. I don't buy it. How does it impact you? I mean, that's quite crazy.
There are producers, so that the Brazilian that we work, he always asks some experimental stuff. He says, what would be your idea for experimental lot? So here we even play. We have like a little lot where we can play with the experimental thing. Others, they absolutely don't want to be. They say, this is our coffee, buy or don't buy, take it or leave it. So that really depends. Each producer see it a bit differently.
Thank you so much. Give it up, applause.